Back on the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk KFYO. Thank you for tuning in today. We go to the phones. Republican strategist Matt Mackowiak joins us this morning. Matt, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Good morning, Chad. How you doing?
Doing great. Appreciate you joining us today. Just taking a look back at the Texas GOP Convention from over the weekend. Obviously, it wasn't the smoothest convention in the history of the Republican Party, but at least major decisions were made, and I guess there's going to be a second GOP convention. Tell us just kind of what you took away from the convention, and besides the obvious that it was a virtual convention, any surprises in your mind?
I think in the grand scheme of things, I don't know that much happened that matters except for the race for state chairman. I think we learned that pulling off a 10,000 delegate virtual convention in 3 days when you need to hold 36 separate congressional district caucuses and 31 separate Senate district caucuses is an impossible task.
Yeah.
The race for state chair, I think, is going to matter because, I did support James Dickey, who I thought had done an outstanding job. And I felt that while Allen West is, certainly a conservative and was a good member of Congress for 2 years, he had really not demonstrated a knowledge of the job or an interest in the job sufficient to fire the incumbent, who had been doing a good job. Now, the good news is James is turning over an organization that is very stable and, in fact, is thriving right now. $5 million cash on hand, thousands of new volunteers, 120,000 new registered Republican voters just in the last year alone, and is the strongest slate of candidates we've probably ever had and the largest slate of candidates we've ever had. So Allen West now has 4 months, till the November election, and he's going to have to sort of start from a standing stop and get into a sprint position. I do think the party's in good shape, and so he is inheriting a strong organization. But I think that matters. I mean, we need the Republican Party of Texas to be as strong as it possibly can be, given how competitive Texas could ultimately become this November based on what happened in 2018. Outside of that, Chad, look, there's obviously dissatisfaction with some of the actions the governor's taken on coronavirus. I think they, who knows what would have happened had they moved forward with the platform, what changes would have been made or what resolutions would have been offered, things like that. But ultimately, a lot of that was avoided, and now we go forward unified for November with the new state chairman in place.
Okay, so let's stick on the chairman deal for a little bit. One, for those who don't know, and I think if you were to go around and ask maybe the average Republican voter, they would have no idea who the state chairman was.
Right.
They don't know. So this is a little bit of inside baseball here. But what's the job? What is the job supposed to be for the state chairman?
Well, I mean, you run the organization, you run the Republican Party of Texas, and so you are, the chief fundraiser for the state party. You are the chief strategist. You are the chief organizer. You work to elect as many Republicans as possible, and you are bound by the decisions made by the State Republican Executive Committee, which is basically the board of directors of the state party, which, if I remember correctly, gets 2 members per Senate district. So I think there's 62, and there may be the committee man and committee woman, so it might be 64 total on the overall board. But they're the ones who set the bylaws, who set the budget. They have committees and things like that. But look, it's a huge job. It's a massive job. It's a consuming job. It's not a job for someone who doesn't know what they're doing or doesn't know how it works. And throughout the campaign, it became clear that Allen really had never been to an SREC meeting, which happened 4 times a year, didn't know much about the state party. A lot of his message was really, let's take the fight to the Democrats, let's use media, let's do debates. And those are all fine things, but those aren't really central to the job of chairman. It is kind of a mundane job at times. I mean, it is long, hard days. It's traveling the state relentlessly. It's working to elect as many Republicans as possible up and down ballot. It's helping the county parties. I mean, it is a full-time job. And, of course, Allen does a lot of things. He's involved in some other PACs. He does paid speaking. He does writing. I mean, I don't know whether those things are going to continue, but we don't need a part-time chairman. We need a full-time chairman. And, in fact, in the last 12 or 18 months, the SREC decided to approve paying our chairman. I want to say he gets maybe $150,000 a year now. It used to be a volunteer job. And so it used to be a situation where you either have rich people doing it or people who could only give some of their time, and that prevented us from having the kind of full-time chairman we needed.
So did Dickie get, I guess, fired, or not reelected because of an issue or two, or was it the complete collapse of what happened over the weekend with the convention?
I think it was three things. I think the margin showed it was primarily the collapse of the virtual convention. You had people who couldn't get their credentials, who felt they were being disenfranchised. You had people who got their credentials but couldn't log in or couldn't log into the voting system or were frustrated by the technical challenges. So there was just kind of a sense of dissatisfaction with that. Now, I think that's silly. We're going to have one virtual convention in my lifetime. The fact that you would evaluate that important position based on a unique circumstance is ridiculous. But I think there were two other factors. The second is, look, Allen West is a major figure, and if we're being honest about it, James Dickey's profile is not 1/10 or even maybe 1/100th of Allen West's profile. Right? All these appearances on Fox over the years, all the speaking he's done, the writing, the fact that he served in Congress, he's a major figure, and he had a lot of fans. I think the third thing that was a factor is that on the far right there was dissatisfaction that James hasn't gone after some of our Republican statewide officials on specific issues, and that he didn't push for a special session because of dissatisfaction over not enough conservative legislation passing. I understand those criticisms. I generally don't believe it's the job of the Republican Party of Texas chairman to criticize Republican elected officials. That's what the Democrats do. Our opponents are the Democrats, not the Republicans. We should pass a platform. We should support what we support in our platform, but I don't believe the party should be used as a weapon against its own elected officials. I think all that does is help Democrats. If you want to be part of a conservative organization like Empower Texans or some other group, and you want to hold Republicans accountable or pressure them or get people engaged on specific issues, go at it. That's perfectly fine. I have a lot of friends that do those things. I think that's perfectly fine. That's not what the Republican Party of Texas does, and that's not what we do at the Travis County GOP, where I'm the chairman in Austin. We see our mission as being elect as many Republicans as possible, grow the party, and advance conservative principles, and that's what we work on every day.
Yeah. Visiting with Matt Mackowiak here on the Chad Hasty Show. We'll take a look at the Cornyn race, the race for Senate. Matt, we know that the primary is over because I'm getting fundraising emails. Seems like every single day, and we've the two candidates are taking shots at each other. How do you think for the Democrats? How do they overtake Cornyn in this race?
Yeah, number one, I don't think they will. I mean, I think Cornyn's going to win by a larger margin than Trump does in Texas. We'll see what that margin ends up being. It's going to depend a lot on the political environment, where the economy is, where coronavirus is. But Cornyn starts with, I forget, he's got $13 or $14 million in the bank, and MJ Hegar starts basically, broke. She limped into this runoff. Comes limping out of it. Really barely got over the line. I think she won 52-48. She had to put almost $1 million on television in the last 5 days to survive. Royce West, got a lot of support from elected Texas Democrats, but really didn't raise any money, nor not nearly enough money. But it showed, I think, the weakness of Hegar. She's not a statewide figure. She's not well known. She has some just sort of substantive issue problems, I think, with the electorate, which Cornyn has already highlighted. She wants to move towards a payer system. She wants to raise taxes on oil and gas and move towards a cap-and-trade type energy system, which is not going to be popular in large swaths of the state. And I'll just say something else. Her style to me is very off-putting. She's just so overly aggressive towards Cornyn. He's a criminal. I mean, it's really just an aggressiveness that I don't think Texans will like at all. Her language is so over the top. Almost in everything she says. Watch any interview with her. It's really shocking the language she uses when she talks about this race. And so I don't think she's going to wear very well with independents or with suburban Republicans. I don't think she's going to raise nearly enough money. She's got to go out and raise $10 or $15 million in 4 months. I don't think she'll do that. And I don't think the Democrats will invest at the national level to try to flip Texas. They've got a number of pathways to getting the Senate majority back without having to spend $10 or $15 or $20 million in Texas.
Is it possible the main hope, that the Democrats have, or that she may have, in this, and she's already brought it up that Cornyn is no Cruz, that Cornyn doesn't. And listen, I get it every single time Cornyn's on with me, Matt. I get a ton of Republicans who just cannot stand Senator John Cornyn. Now, what I've told everybody is when it comes to vote, it doesn't matter if you have to hold your nose or what, because we cannot risk the Democrats getting back the Senate. We can't risk that at all. But it is the hope that because Cornyn does not have that, energetic base that maybe a Ted Cruz has, that Cruz starts off with, that with no, the single ballot voting and any of that people just go vote for, diehard conservatives. They go and vote for Trump, and that they leave Cornyn off the ballot.
Well, I guess that's possible. I think to what extent that happens, I think is likely to be outweighed by Democrats who might vote for Biden but then vote for Cornyn. Right? There are going to be crossover votes down ballot. People who maybe want don't necessarily want a Democratic Senate. Maybe they don't like Trump personally. They don't like his personality or behavior or whatever. No, look, I think Cornyn's going to overperform Trump. I'll stand by that prediction. Yeah. And that doesn't mean he's, better than Trump or more conservative than Trump or anything else. I just think his image is going to be better at the end of the election than in Texas than Trump's is going to be. Yeah. He's running a good campaign. He has a solid record to run out of actual accomplishments in the Senate. He worked really hard. I admire Cornyn, and I'm proud to say that. Is he Ted Cruz? No. They're different politicians. Cruz is much stronger in a primary in Texas, and Cornyn, I think, is much stronger in a general election, which is why first-tier candidates on the Democratic side, it's a short list in Texas, but the Julian Castro, the Joaquin Castro, the Beto O'Rourke's, passed on running against Cornyn. Yeah. And it's not because they're not ambitious, and it's not because they don't think they can flip Texas, in the near future. It's because they didn't think Cornyn was beatable, which is why the Democrats are stuck with a woman running as their nominee who lost a congressional race last year, 2 years ago. Right? I mean, that's not a statewide figure. She couldn't even get elected to Congress, to one of our 36 congressional districts. So I think the odds that she wins a statewide election and breaks the Democrat streak for not winning a statewide election since 1994, I think are really low. Yeah. But Cornyn understands that he's not as loved by the base as someone like Cruz is. He plays the inside game. Cruz plays the outside game, and that affects how primary voters view you. But primary voters don't determine general elections. It's voters in the middle who vote in presidential elections, who swing between the two parties that decide it. And I think Cornyn's going to do well with those voters. Yeah.
Visiting with Matt Mackowiak here on the Chad Hasty Show. Matt, tell folks about your newsletter and also your podcast.
Yeah, newsletter is called Must Read Texas. You can sign up at mustreadtexas.com. We have, I think, over 20,000 free subscribers now, and we have a paid service as well where you receive it every morning in your inbox. We take all the top news from around the state, put it in one clean, easy-to-read email. It saves you time and makes you smarter and makes sure you're not missing any news around the state. The podcast is called Mac on Politics. It's available in the iTunes Store, on Google Play, on Stitcher, and on Spotify. Most recent episode is with a leader of the opposition in Iran, the National Council of the Resistance of Iran. Worth checking out. Great conversation about what's going on in that country and the efforts to overturn the government.
Yeah, very nice. All right, Matt, thank you as always. Appreciate your time.
Take care.
Thank you. That's Matt Mackowiak here on the Chad Hasty Show News Talk, KFYO.